let us talk about specialization. Specialization is sometimes also called division of labor. Now, what do I really mean by specialization or division of labor? Now, let's say in a family, think about your family, maybe a family of 4 members. Now, in your family or within your family, not everyone is doing everything, right? Maybe sometimes your mother takes care of the cooking while you take care of the laundry. Maybe your dad takes care of the lawn mowing. Maybe your sister, she takes care of cleaning the house. And maybe, your younger brother takes care of something else. So within our family, not everyone is doing everything. Even if you think about a group project, if I assign you a group project, not everyone is going to do everything in the group project. Maybe someone is going to do research on the internet, someone is actually going to make the PowerPoint slides, maybe someone is going to look into the illustrations or the figures or the graphs that should go into your project, and maybe someone will actually concentrate on orally presenting the project. So that means everyone is not doing everything. And why is this beneficial? Of course it is beneficial, and that's why we engage in this kind of behavior. Now, the benefit of this behavior is that we can avoid chaos. That means whenever multiple individuals or multiple entities are interacting within a closed setting, like a group project or a family, not everyone is doing everything. They are interacting with each other, but to avoid chaos from such interactions, they are concentrating on one job at a time. So that means whenever there is interaction between individuals, you can see that there is division of labor. In other words, there is specialization. And there is definitely some gains attached to this division of labor. There are some benefits attached to this kind of specialization, because it just helps everything to progress in an organized, orderly fashion. Had it been not this way, then there would be a lot of chaos, there would be a lot of mess, and maybe in the process the work would not have got done. So that means division of labor or specialization at a job is essential whenever multiple individuals are interacting within a closed setting. Now, if you just broaden the horizon, instead of thinking from the micro perspective, instead of thinking of interaction of individuals, if you just think about interaction of countries, even then it would be true. If you think about countries where every country is producing every commodity and service, then it would be a really chaotic situation, right? Instead, it might be a better approach if countries decided to specialize, or that means that some countries decide to concentrate or focus on the production of some goods or service, and other countries decide on focusing on other goods and service. Now, how would you know which country should focus on which good or service? That is exactly where we are heading to. Once again, let's retreat and come back to the micro perspective, because it's always easier to understand something at the individual level. If I asked you to do a group project and you had the first group meeting where you are dividing the work amongst yourselves, when you divide the work, obviously what comes up in your discussion is what are you good at? Right? So if someone is good at research, that person takes that responsibility. If someone is a good presenter, then that person takes the responsibility of the oral presentation. If someone is really good at doing PowerPoint slides, then that person, volunteers to make the slides. So basically, whenever there is division of labor or there is specialization, the best way to go about it is to do something according to your own advantage. If you are at an advantageous point of doing something, then it is beneficial for you to do that particular work. The same would be true also in the case of macroeconomy. Even in the case of macroeconomy, it is important for countries to specialize in commodities, to specialize in the production of services and goods that they are good at making. Right? So it is important for them to understand what they are good at doing and specialize in the production of such goods and commodities. Now, to understand what countries are good at, what are they really good at or advantageous position, they have an advantageous position to manufacture that good or service, we need to go into understanding the concept of opportunity cost. Now, what is opportunity cost? Now, you already know that opportunity cost is what you sacrifice or what you give up to do something else. So, it is whatever is foregone to do something else is opportunity cost, right? So, if you have a limited amount of resources, you can allocate those resources only into doing certain things. You cannot do it all. We all know that, right? So, if you decide to choose option A, the options that you give up is basically your opportunity cost. Now, to understand this concept of opportunity cost in the macroeconomic perspective, let us use the model of Production Possibility Frontier or PPF. Now, in this Production Possibility Frontier model, we will make two implicit assumptions, and these are simplifying assumptions. In the real world, these assumptions do not hold, but in order to understand this concept very easily, we will make these simplifying assumptions. So we assume that this is a world that has only two countries. So let us assume the two countries are USA and Bolivia. And I could have considered any two other countries, but you know, I'm just considering them because that is what I wish to do. And the second assumption is that there are only two commodities that are being produced by these countries. So both countries produce both these commodities, and for example, let us assume that these commodities are large jets, jet planes, right, and quinoa, right? So these are the two commodities, large jets and quinoa, that these two countries, both these countries produce. Now, if I try to replicate this model, the Production Possibility Frontier model, in the form of a graph, which we usually do in economics, then this is what the graph would look like. So I would represent a commodity on x-axis, quinoa, let's say, and another commodity on the y-axis, large jets, let's say. Now, it is not essential that I have to measure quinoa on x and large jets on y. I could have flipped that. I could have taken quinoa on y and large jets on x. It would not matter. But the idea is that we have quinoa on the x-axis. We have one commodity on one axis and the other commodity on the other axis. So what we are basically measuring here is quantity of quinoa, and what we are measuring on the y-axis is quantity of large jets. So on both axes, you have units of commodities. Please be careful about that. And let's say this is the diagram for one particular country, USA, and I could draw a similar diagram for the other country also, Bolivia, and it would have the same two commodities because only those two commodities are produced by these two countries by our simplifying assumption. Now let's say USA produces say 40 units of quinoa and it produces 30 units of large jets. Once again, I'm just taking arbitrary numbers. You know, I'm just cooking them up. You could have taken 4,000 and 3,000, or you could have taken 20 and 10. It wouldn't matter. I'm just cooking up these numbers. Now, what these numbers basically mean, you know that any point on the x-axis has the coordinate x0, right? So that means the coordinate of this point is basically 40, 0. And you know that the coordinates of any point on the y-axis is 0, y. So that means the coordinate of this point is basically 0, 30. Now economically, so that's the mathematical interpretation of these 2 points. What does it mean economically based on this example? Economically, it means that if USA puts all its available resources into producing only quinoa, then it would be able to produce 40 units of quinoa and 0 units of large jets, because there are no resources left over to put into large jets, right? Similarly, if USA decided to put all its resources into making only large jets, it would be able to produce a maximum of 30 large jets and 0 quinoa, right? So that means these 2 points, these corner points, are the points of specialization. In other words, it is the point, this is the point where USA would produce if it decided to specialize in quinoa alone, and this is the point where USA would produce if it decided to specialize in large jets alone, right? And if I join these 2 corner points with a line like that, then this line would have numerous such points, and I could find numerous such points on those lines. And please note that all those lines would have a non-zero x coordinate and a non-zero y coordinate, which means that all those points would represent some combination of quinoa and large jets that USA decides to produce. Okay. Now let's take one such point. Let's take this point. Okay. Let's say that's 20 and this is 15. So basically the coordinates of this point is 20, 15. So this point basically means that given all the resources that USA has, it allocates those resources in such a way that it produces 20 units of quinoa and it produces 15 units of large jets. So it is not a point of specialization. USA is producing both commodities, right? But once again, just reiterating that these 2 corner points means that the resources are allocated only in the production of one commodity, quinoa in this case and large jets in the other case, and at this point. And besides that, there are several points on this line where you could find some bundle, some combination of quinoa or large jets that are produced by USA using these resources. Now, if I had a point like this, let's say I had a point like that, okay, please note that this point basically means that given all the resources that USA has, it cannot produce this point. Why is that? Because this point basically denotes this combination, right? So much amount of quinoa and that many amount of large jets. Please note that on the y-axis, this point is over 30, isn't it? But we know that the maximum amount of large jets that USA can produce, given its resources, is only 30. So that means this is a point, or this is a combination of quinoa or large jets that USA cannot produce. In other words, we can say that this is an unfeasible point of production. Unfeasible. It's not possible for USA to produce that point. However, this point is a feasible point of production. It is possible for USA to produce at this point. Now we could have a third kind of point. We could have something like this, okay, whatever be the coordinates. Let's say the coordinates are 11 maybe and 15, and this is not drawn to scale. Once again, this graph, I'm like cooking up the numbers. So the coordinates of this point are 15 and 11, right? Once again, this is lying within the maximum amount. So USA can produce 40 maximum quinoa and 30 maximum large jets, and you can see that those two are well within those bounds. So that means that that is also a feasible point of production, right? So basically, this line is giving you the concept of feasibility of production or possibility of production. Anything beyond that line is impossible for the country to produce. Anything under that line or on the line is possible for the country to produce, and hence this line is called the Production Possibility Frontier, or PPF. Because anything above that line is not possible for the country to be produced, anything on the line or below the line is possible to be produced. So the word frontier, it is setting the boundaries of production for the country, or the possibilities of production for the country given the current resources of the country. Now, beyond feasibility, there is also another concept that we will dig into, and that concept is the concept of efficiency. Now, you haven't heard about this concept yet, but what do we really mean by efficiency? Let's first talk about that. Efficiency basically means that given resources of a country or an individual, those resources have been allocated in such a way that to make anybody better off, it would be absolutely necessary to make someone else worse off, right? So efficiency means that the resources have been optimally allocated. For example, let's say I bring a huge cake to class, okay, and I decide to divide that cake into 50 and 50 among the male and female students in the class. So I decide to give 50% to the male students and 50% to the female students, and the cake is all over, right? I don't have any more cake left. Now the male students want a little bit more, right? They finish their cake and they want a little bit more, and I don't have any more cake left. Now if I have to give some more cake to the male students, I must take away some from the female students. If I have to make the males a little bit more better off, then I must make the females a little bit worse off. That is what we mean by efficiency. So the initial allocation was efficient, and now if I have to make someone a little bit better off, I have to make the other person a little worse off, right? Now similarly, we can capture that concept of efficiency here, okay? At this point, let me just name these points, it will be easier. Let's call this point A, let's call this point B, and let's call this point C. Now if we are at point A, then please note that the concept of efficiency does not arise at all, right? Because this point is not even attainable. It's not even possible for the country to produce at that point. So the concept of efficiency does not arise, and by default that point is just inefficient, because the country is not even producing at that point, right? So it's unfeasible, but at the same time it is inefficient. Now let's go down to point B. Please note that here the country is producing exactly on the PPF, and it is producing 20 units of quinoa and 50 units of largets. Now let's say the country decides to produce some additional units of quinoa. It wants to make a little more quinoa, maybe around here, right? So maybe it wants to produce 28 quinoa, okay? 8 extra units of quinoa. If it has to produce 8 extra units of quinoa, then please note that it has to give up some units of largets. That is what we are talking about, okay? It cannot keep producing 15 largets anymore. It has to come down to a number smaller than 15. What does that mean? That means that this is kind of giving you a sense of the concept of efficiency. If the country was at point B and it wants to do better in production of one commodity, then it must be worse in the production of the other commodity. So in that sense, point B is not just a feasible point of production, but it is also an efficient point of production. And efficient in the sense that at this point, if you have to become better in the production of one commodity, you have to be worse off in the production of the other commodity. The same would also be true for largets. If you had to produce any more largets, then you would have to produce some less of the quinoa. You cannot keep producing 20 quinoa, okay? Because why is this happening? This is happening basically because of that same concept. I take you back to the concept of scarcity or limitation of resources. Because you do not have abundance of resources, because you have a tight limit on resources, that's why you have to allocate the resources between the two commodities, and unless your resource itself is increasing, you have to become worse off in production of one commodity if you increase the production of the other commodity. So that means all points that lie exactly on the PPF are not just feasible or possible points of production, but they are also efficient points of production. So they are feasible and they are also efficient. Now we are still left with another point, that is point C. What about point C? So we said that point C is possible. It is possible to produce at point C, right? So it's a feasible point. What about efficiency? Now let's say I want to produce from 15, instead of 15, I want to produce some extra quinoa. Please note that while I produce some extra quinoa, I can still produce some largets because I'm still within the frontier, isn't it? As I'm increasing quinoa, I can still increase largets. So increasing both is possible, right? I do not have to give up some of the other commodity to produce more of one, unlike point B. So that means point C is a feasible point, but it is an inefficient point of production. It is inefficient. It's an inefficient point of production, and I will draw a clearer picture for you just to make it clear. Okay, so it's a feasible point, it is possible to produce, but it is inefficient in the sense that you could produce more of both commodities. And why do you see this difference between B and C? The reason being, at B you have already exhausted all your existing resources in producing that combination of quinoa and largets. So if you must produce a little bit more of one, you must take away some resources and give up some production of the other. Whereas at point C, you can you have unused resources, you have some leftover resources, so you can easily put those leftover resources into producing more of both goods. So if I draw a less cluttered image, okay, the same diagram, just uncluttering it for you. So that is your PPF. Okay, and you could have points like these, A, B or C. So any point like A is unfeasible and inefficient. Any point like B is feasible and efficient. The resources or inputs are optimally used, and at point C it's feasible, so possible to produce this point, but it is inefficient, which means the resource utilization is not optimal, but there is underutilization of resources, or there is some unused resources. Now once we have understood this basic production possibility frontier model, we will go into looking at the concept of opportunity cost using that same model, and then we will use that further to build on the concept of specialization and finally international trade.